Imagine waking up tomorrow and discovering that someone has been quietly taking $50 from your bank account every single week. Not by stealing your wallet, not by hacking your account, but by convincing you to hand it over willingly. The strange part is, you probably wouldn't even notice. Because the biggest financial mistakes in 2026 don't feel like mistakes at all. They feel normal. Ordering dinner after a long day, buying a new phone because everyone else is upgrading, stopping for coffee every morning, paying another monthly subscription you'll barely use. None of these purchases seem dangerous. In fact, they often feel deserved. But that's exactly why they've become so expensive. Over the last few years, prices have risen faster than value. Companies have become experts at making spending feel effortless while quietly charging more than ever before. The result? Millions of people are paying premium prices for things that simply aren't worth what they used to be. This isn't about becoming cheap. It's not about never enjoying life. It's about understanding which purchases genuinely improve your life and which ones quietly drain your future without giving much back in return. Today, we're looking at 8 everyday purchases that have become some of the worst financial decisions you can make in 2026. Some of these might already be part of your daily routine. Let's begin. It's been a long day. You're tired. The last thing you want to do is cook. So you pull out your phone. Within seconds, you're scrolling through burgers, tacos, pizza, sushi. Everything looks delicious. You finally settle on a burger meal. The menu says $12. Not bad. You tap checkout. Suddenly, the price changes. Delivery fee, service fee, taxes, a tip for the driver. What started as a $12 meal is now $22. You hesitate for a moment. Then you tell yourself, it's only this once. The problem is that it almost never is. Food delivery apps aren't making billions because people order once. They're making billions because millions of people repeat the exact same decision several times every week. Most people don't realize the markup actually starts before the extra fees appear. Restaurants often raise menu prices on delivery apps because the platforms charge them commissions that can reach 30% on every order. Then the app adds its own fees on top. By the time dinner reaches your front door, you've paid nearly double for the exact same meal sitting 10 minutes away. Convenience has become incredibly expensive. Imagine spending just $15 extra every time you order. Do that twice a week. That's over $1,500 every year. Enough to fund a vacation, build an emergency fund, or make a serious investment. Instead, it disappears, one delivery at a time. Now, there's nothing wrong with ordering food occasionally. Everyone has days when convenience is worth paying for. The danger begins when convenience becomes a habit instead of an exception, because companies know something about human behavior. If buying something is easy enough, people stop thinking about the price. One tap, one swipe, another order. And unlike a burger that disappears in 20 minutes, the next purchase sits in your driveway for years, quietly costing you thousands before you've ever noticed. Walk into almost any dealership today, and you'll notice something interesting. No one starts by talking about the price. Instead, they talk about how the car makes you feel. The giant touchscreen, the leather seats, the panoramic sunroof, the new car smell.
The salesperson hands you the keys for a test drive, and for 20 minutes it feels like you're already living a better life. That's not an accident. Car dealerships aren't just selling transportation, they're selling a feeling, a reward, a symbol that you've made it. Then comes the question almost everyone answers the wrong way. What's your monthly budget? Notice they rarely ask, how much do you want to spend? Because focusing on the monthly payment makes an expensive purchase feel surprisingly affordable.
$700 a month doesn't sound as painful as saying you're spending nearly $50,000 on a car. But the real cost doesn't begin when you sign the paperwork. It begins the moment you drive away. Nothing changes about the vehicle. The engine is the same, the seats are the same, the technology is the same. Yet in a matter of minutes, thousands of dollars disappear. Not because the car broke, not because it was damaged, simply because it's no longer considered new. It's one of the few purchases in life where owning something for 5 minutes instantly makes it worth dramatically less.
The cycle repeats, again and again. Now compare that to someone who buys a reliable car that's 4 or 5 years old. The previous owner already absorbed the biggest financial hit. The vehicle still has years of dependable life ahead of it. Modern cars regularly last well beyond 150,000 miles with routine maintenance. The second owner gets nearly the same experience for a fraction of the price. This isn't about driving old, unreliable cars. It's about understanding the difference between paying for transportation and paying for depreciation.
Because the wealthiest people often understand something that advertisers hope you'll never realize. A car's job is to get you where you're going. It isn't supposed to prove you've arrived. And while expensive cars quietly lose value, there's another habit that's become dramatically more expensive without most people noticing. One that millions of families still treat as a normal part of every weekend. There was a time when eating at a restaurant felt like an affordable escape. Maybe it was Friday night after work. Maybe you were celebrating a birthday. Or maybe you just didn't feel like cooking. Whatever the reason, the bill rarely made you think twice.
Today, that same dinner tells a very different story. You glance at the menu. A burger costs $20. Pasta is $24. A steak starts at $35. You order a drink without thinking. Maybe an appetizer to share. Everything feels normal until the check arrives. For 2 people, dinner can easily cost well over $100. And somehow, you leave feeling like the experience wasn't much different than it was 5 years ago. The music is the same. The chairs are the same. The conversations are the same. Only the prices have changed. Restaurants aren't entirely to blame. Food costs have increased. Rent has increased. Labor costs have increased.
Utilities are more expensive than ever. To survive, many restaurants had no choice but to raise prices. But from the customer's perspective, the result is simple. You're paying significantly more without receiving significantly more. Then there are the drinks. A soft drink that costs only a few cents to pour might sell for $4 or $5. A cocktail made with a few dollars worth of ingredients can cost $15 or $20. Those little additions don't seem important while you're ordering, but they're often the reason a $60 dinner quietly becomes $100. Now think about repeating that every weekend. $100 every single week. By the end of the year, you've spent more than $5,000 on casual dinners alone. That's enough to fully fund a vacation, pay off debt, or build a healthy investment portfolio.
None of this means you should stop enjoying restaurants. Life isn't meant to be lived inside your kitchen. Celebrating milestones, meeting friends, date nights, those experiences have value that money can't measure. The problem begins when convenience quietly turns into routine, when eating out becomes the default instead of the exception, because that's when an enjoyable experience slowly becomes an expensive habit. And speaking of habits, one industry promised it would save us money.
Instead, it quietly rebuilt the very thing it claimed to replace. Remember when everyone said cable television was dying? The promise sounded incredible. Cancel your expensive cable bill. Pay a few dollars a month for Netflix. Watch whatever you want, whenever you want. It felt like the future. And for a while, it actually was. But somewhere along the way, something changed. Your favorite show moved to another platform. The movie you wanted wasn't on Netflix anymore. Sports required a different subscription, then another. Without realizing it, your entertainment slowly became scattered across half a dozen different apps. Netflix, Disney+, Hulu, Max, Apple TV+, Prime Video, Peacock, Paramount+. Individually, none of them seem expensive. $10 here, $15 there, another $8 over there. Each subscription feels harmless on its own, but together, many households now spend well over $100 every month just to watch television. The next purchase was once famous for being cheap. Today, it barely deserves that reputation anymore. Fast food used to solve one simple problem. You didn't have much time, you didn't have much money. So you traded perfect nutrition for convenience. It wasn't the healthiest option, but at least it was affordable. That bargain has quietly disappeared. Drive past almost any major fast food restaurant today. The parking lot is still full. The drive-through line still wraps around the building. People are ordering just as often as they always have. The only difference, they're paying almost twice as much to do it. A meal that once cost $5 or $6 can now cost $12, sometimes $15. For a family of 4, one quick stop can easily approach $60. And despite the higher prices, very little has actually improved. The burger isn't dramatically better, the fries aren't fresher, the portions certainly aren't bigger. You're simply paying more for the same experience. Companies understand something about human behavior. When people are hungry, tired, and in a hurry, price becomes an afterthought. The decision isn't made with logic, it's made with emotion. You tell yourself you'll cook tomorrow, you'll eat healthier next week. Today is just an exception. But exceptions have a strange habit of becoming routines. A quick meal after work becomes 3 visits a week. 3 visits become 4. Before long, thousands of dollars disappear every year on food that wasn't even memorable. The biggest cost isn't just financial, it's physical. Fast food was never designed to improve your health. Its value came from being inexpensive. Once that advantage disappeared, all that remained was convenience. And convenience is a terrible investment when it costs premium prices. Making a sandwich at home isn't exciting. Cooking pasta isn't glamorous. But spending 15 minutes in your kitchen instead of $15 at a drive-thru can quietly change your financial future over time.
Sometimes it starts with keeping more of the money you already earn. The people who become financially secure aren't necessarily the ones with the highest salaries. They're often the ones who recognize the difference between value and price. Before making your next purchase, ask yourself one question. Am I paying for something that truly improves my life, or am I simply paying because someone made spending feel easy? That single question has the power to change your finances more than almost any investment strategy ever could. Because in 2026, the smartest